Hey, hi. This is let's see, let me make sure. This is Bill Hartzer, and today is November 7th, 2019. This is the Bill Hartzer podcast for November 7th, 2019, Thursday. Uh, I have the pleasure of speaking today with Igor Mateski from WebMax Formance, and we're basically talking a little bit about SEO and PPC lead gen strategies and content, and and how the fact that basically that quality content is really the key here when it comes to lead generation and so forth. And so, Igor, tell me a little bit about yourself and how long you've been doing this, lead generation, and how long your company has been in business and so forth.
So first, hello and thank you for the invitation.
Sure.
I've been in the business of SEO for a while now, since 2006. It started off as running SEO for my own e-commerce website,
Hmm.
and then it was a slow transition that lasted for a couple of years from selling stuff to selling the services of doing SEO and lead gen for
Sure.
companies. So basically, as a strict lead gen company registered as WebMax Formance, it's been since 2009, so it's a 10-year anniversary this year, actually.
Sure, great. So a little bit. Do you the process of lead gen? Do you start actually with just creating content, or do is research involved, or do you just I know some people will basically create some landing pages and start with a list and just start with some landing pages just to get the research, and then based on conversions and what keywords are doing well. What is your process as far as it everything goes?
Yeah, so first we start actually with running some psychology research
Okay.
about the brand that we are working with. Who is the brand as a person? Meaning, we build a brand persona if the client doesn't have one, and even if they do, it's rough and not detailed enough. Then we analyze their pitch, their selling proposition, unique selling
Okay.
proposition, if there is one. If there isn't, we have to figure out which is the elevator pitch offer. Then we
Sure.
do a similar research for the target audience and flesh out a buyer persona with all their quirks and motivational triggers and things that keep them up at night, so that we know the user, their client as much as we can, and then use the words and the language of our client to tell the story that they want to tell to the people that they want to tell it to, in a form that's going to be most acceptable and get highest conversion rates. After we figure out the story of the story, then we go into actually building the landing page. And usually that's going to be a lot of research, figuring out how the flow of the text is going to work, what kind of pain points we're going to trigger early on in the text, and what we cover in the main body, and then what we repeat in the close to call to action section of the text. Then we do a wireframe of the landing page with graphics and everything. The client approves it, and then finally it goes into build. We set goals in Google Analytics, and then for quick success, we drive PPC traffic. But for scaling, we go with organic traffic.
Sure. Is there a difference, between campaign, how would you treat it, and the research for, for B2C, and versus the B2B, and which one do you prefer working with?
Yeah, personally, just because we're more engineering based, it's usually going to be a B2B preference, but we're just now working actually with a technology company that sells products, and it's a B2C situation. The workflow is pretty much the same for a B2B situation and a B2C situation. The same set of questions that we use, the same workflows of how we gather information, how we process information, then how we take that process information and build them into an actual personal profile of the brand, our client, and then of the client persona. It's usually the same. There are some small nuances from situation to situation, but the general direction is pretty much the same and straightforward.
Sure. So I'm assuming you probably you obviously use LinkedIn a lot and gather a lot of data from that. Or you use LinkedIn campaigns, or are you using basically just some of the data that I use. I will connect with or usually the CEO of a company or one of the major C-level executives, and use their all the connections and the data that they have from their personal profile, or even for or if it's a project for myself, it would be everybody that I'm connected with, certainly, and use some of that data. uh, let's talk a little bit about you mentioned to me that you use a certain system of creating that helps you create the content. uh, Tell me a little bit about this, the Kubler-Ross Trauma Recovery Process, and how that is used in generating content for lead gen.
Yeah, so the Kubler-Ross Trauma Recovery Process, um, a bit of psychology and history on it. She was I think a clinical psychologist back in the 60s or 70s, and was doing a research trying to figure out what are the steps through which each person is going through to accept a reality of a traumatic experience, whether that traumatic
Right.
experience was a car accident or flunking an exam or whatever. And regardless of how far distant this event was in time, she found that there are 5 stages through which each person goes through. The
Okay.
phase of denial, like I don't have a problem, ignoring the problem or closing the eyes to the problem. The phase of anger, where the person understands that, yeah, it was a stinking thing and it happened to me. So that triggers anger. After that, there's the stage of bargaining, where the person is trying to lower or minimize the impact so that they could basically swallow the fact that, yeah, I flunked the exam, or yeah, I was dumped, or whatever.
Sure.
After that, there's the stage of depression, where you look at the problem and say, yeah, it was messy, it was big, and it happened to me, and it screwed up my 10 years of my life. And then finally, there's the idea of acceptance, where the person says, okay, it happened, I'm alive, I still breathe, I still walk, I can still function, and then we move on. So the idea if a person goes through these 5 stages to accept an idea, a traumatic idea, probably, maybe, they would go through the same psychological process to accept a sales pitch.
Sure.
And then the idea is going to be, I don't want a new car. And then the idea is going to be, I hate my old car. And then it's going to be, well, it's not that expensive to buy a new car. I probably can buy a new car. And it's going to be, okay, yeah, it is expensive, but I want the damn thing. So I'm going to
Sure.
get a loan, I'm going to buy the car. And that's how you could segment the customer journey from a person that is completely uninterested in what you have to offer into a raving fan of what you have to offer.
Sure. So as far as creating that content, I mean, do you prefer to I guess use you want, just a one-time kind of setup and of the lead the whole the process, or you'd prefer, kind of or have you, let me ask you this, have you found that in the projects that, once you go through that whole, setup process and so forth, and is there, kind of ongoing tweaking that needs to be done, or changes maybe to the content or something, and you prefer, the one-time projects, or sort of the ongoing projects?
There's always, I mean, if you let data speak, there's
Hmm.
always going to be something to fix and tweak.
Yep.
And no matter how much research we've poured in at the early stages, once the traffic starts flowing in and we see how traffic flows from page to page through Google Analytics, we get to know if our theory was real. And then we tweak along the way. Uh, it's usually, for me, for my company, it's usually a very long relationship with the clients. We go for years and years of working on their web presence. So it works really well if there are multiple touch points between the website, the client's website, and their potential client. And just because the businesses that we work are engineering companies where the conversion is weighted in six figures, they have the budget to go through all these fine tunes and rebuilds and setups. But what we've found is that we're basically doubling the organic traffic of clients every 6 months, regardless
Okay.
of what Google is doing. And conversely, we're doubling the lead gen every 6 months. With one client that we have a long relationship, we got them a 20-fold organic traffic increase in less than 20 months. Very high-end software technology company, multiple points of touch point between them and a prospective client. And the owner says, I haven't even spoken to the guy for months. He's too busy answering the phone. So
Sure.
there's results, but it's not cheap.
A little bit, there's also another process, the PASTA process: problem,
Mhm.
agitation, story, solution, transformation, and action. And I understand, you use that in kind of the structure. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so that's one of the copywriting models that copywriters use. Probably the most
Okay.
popular one is the AIDA: attraction, interest, desire, and action. We found that it's not really effective. So you've heard of this pasta model from a good friend of mine from the UK, and we've started using it. So the idea there is this pasta structure: problem, agitation, story, transformation, and action is basically would basically be the five subheadings of a text.
Okay.
So in with the problem, you identify the problem. Your old car sucks, let's say. In the next section, agitation, you paint a picture of how lousy a life is when you drive around in a 20-year-old car and everybody else is on hybrids and whatnot. In
Yep.
the story, you paint a picture of this is how you sell your old car and raise capital to buy a new one. And then in transformation, you paint this beautiful picture of you're driving down your I don't know, pimped up new car that has all the bells and whistles. And then in the call to action, you've basically finished the work. The guy is already, if they have gotten that far, they're in agreement with you. And then the call to action is just going to be, hey, you want to buy a new car? Click here, and we're gonna help you get the best deal for selling your old car and then buying a new car on loan or whatever. It's a system that works well because we basically have a matrix where we have, as I call them, uh, a DABDA of pastas. So you have
Okay.
multiple like containers of ideas that you need to fill in, so that you would take a person that never wants to see a new car, let's say, down to a position of telling everybody else how great it is to have a new car. And then it's just filling these things in, you know, fleshing out the storyline.
Sure. So how do you work, copywriters, do you have them in-house, or how, have, and, do you, how do you, I guess, train them a little bit, to write, in this particular, using these models?
Mm. It's it's the most expensive part of doing organic content-based SEO content production, because it actually requires work. You know, a high-quality text requires a lot of work, and
Sure.
there are systems to help you along the way, but there are no shortcuts. So
Mhm.
there's no easy way for a newcomer, like one of these interns that I have. There's not going to be an easy way for them to get from 0 to 60 in a month. I've been in the copywriting industry for 20 years. I'm still learning, and I'm passing that knowledge to them. The way we do it is that we get a keyword, a search phrase. Uh, then we take that key phrase as a value proposition, and we figure out a title for that value proposition for that keyword, and create
Okay.
titles for each of the steps of the DABDA model.
Sure.
And then once we have titles and a keyword, and we know which each text for which phase it is, we know that if it's in a phase of a denial, the micro conversion or the call to action is not going to be dump your old Honda and get a Tesla. It's going to be, yeah, you do need a new car because the old one is too expensive to maintain. So we're moving them from a denial into anger. And then
Yep.
the text that we would write, I'm going to tell to the copywriter, okay, this is the title. It's for the denial stage. The starting point is I don't need a new car. The end point, end result is getting the person to accept that their old car is not good. And then the way you get them to that story is you identify the problem, you identify the frustrations of dealing with that problem, spend 70% of the copy in the story or solution,
Mhm.
and then spend the rest of the copy to paint a transformed picture of how the life is going to look like once you accept the idea.
Sure.
And then
Okay.
for them is a lot of research and a lot of writing and a lot of editorial reviews.
How many? So the writers, that you have they, been, so Webmax Formats have been around for 10 years. I'm assuming that they, you've had, some that have been, around, with you for a while.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There are a few that remain faithful, and I'm grateful for them staying here. With the younger generation, you know, the millennial generation and the Gen X and the Gen whatever, they want to learn some things and move on to the next company.
Sure.
Um, I don't think how smart that is for them, to, you know, just jumping from one place to another, because we as a company we're a friendly company, and we try to invest in people, and to
Mhm.
take a young person and transfer that and transform them into like a world-class copywriter, it doesn't take a few months, it takes years of
Sure.
training. So the more they stay, the more we invest and the better they become. And you know, with these folks that are here, it's our company. It's not I just have a job. It's, yeah, we love the company, we love the clients, we love what we're doing here. So it's But yeah, some people are stable, some people are not, and then you just as a CEO figure out a way to navigate through all that.
Sure. So you mentioned that you have actually an app, that you use and yeah, that helps with this process. And tell me a little bit about that, the app and so forth, how that can help, with writing.
Yeah, the so the app is called Theosopher. It's still not ready for like sales, but it's open for people to register, create their own free account, and take it for a spin, see how it works. The idea behind it is that, especially with writing copy for landing pages, there are so many copywriters out there or posers
Hmm.
that with a lot of chest pounding say, I'm the best copywriter ever. But the thing is that there is no quantifiable way of measuring how good a copy is.
Sure.
So what we've done is, and it was an internal project because we needed a software that's going to help my copywriters do better. And basically, you can't really improve what you can't measure. So
Yep.
we figure out a way to measure other than measuring text complexity and text length and this and that. We're measuring dominant sentiment, as in positive sentiment, negative or
Okay.
neutral, and we
Sure.
do not want neutral sentiment for our landing page. We want to create a polarized copy that's going to move them emotionally so that they could just read through the text. And
Hmm.
then we have a more granular mapping of emotions around the text. So we
Okay.
have a way to measure uh, six primary emotions: joy, happiness, interest, anger, and a few others I can't really remember at the moment. And the idea is that in the problem section, you do want to have anger as a dominant
Hmm.
emotion. It would be
Sure.
weird for a problem and agitation section in the text to be full of joy as a dominant emotion. So with this software, we can map where the emotion, what the dominant emotions are, and then fix the text, fix the copy, so that it not only forcefully follows the structure, but the narrative and the words and the emotions follow through with the matching, matching emotion for the specific section. And it's helpful. It's still clunky. There's still a lot of work to do on it,
Sure.
but it's helped us move clients, doubling their business every 6 months, and it's been in more than one occasion, more than one industry. So it kind of does work, clunky, but does work.
Sure, sounds great. So, I'm just about out of time. So, how can we get in touch with you? I guess if we, especially if we have questions about the Kubler-Ross process and so forth, and ask, the tool SEO, it's SEOSOPHER.com. And so, how can we get in touch with you?
Yeah, so my main website, my agency website, Webmax Formance, all joined together, webmaxformance.com, is the easiest way to get in touch. Just type in Webmax Formance. There's a contact form in the Contact Us page, and that usually gets to my inbox. If you want to get in touch with me personally, I'm on Facebook and I'm on LinkedIn. I'm an open networker, so look me
Sure.
up as Igor Mateski on Facebook and on LinkedIn, and I'm also on Skype, iMateski. So I think that I'm pretty easy to find.
Sure, sounds great. So thanks for joining me this afternoon, and I've learned a lot about these different techniques and so forth. And I'm going to go back and look at my copy and my sites and my content to make sure that if there's anything that I can update and so forth. So thanks again for joining me this afternoon, and
Mhm.
I'll talk to you fairly soon. Thanks again.
Thanks for the invite.